October is officially spooky season. What does that really mean in the world of gaming? I couldn't tell you. What I can tell you though is that we're getting some games for the Steam Deck. Quite a few big games to be honest, and some smaller ones as well. But are they truly scary, or are they scary for your Steam Deck's performance? I guess I'll find out later in this video. But if you like this video or any other video I've made, please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And in the meantime, why don't you check out Off the Console? It's a brand new podcast created by me, Gardner Bryant, and Games Revealed, with guest stars occasionally. Check it out. The first game on this list is Digimon Story: Time Stranger. Kind of an unusual first title to start with, but this is one of the earliest games being released this month. I remember Digimon used to be a lot more popular than it used to be. I mean, it used to be compared to Pokemon, and as we know, Pokemon's one of the biggest franchises in the world right now. But of course, there's a reason why Power World spoofed Pokemon instead of Digimon, because Digimon already have guns. In fact, there's a Digimon that's basically a dragon but made up of a bunch of different sized revolvers. Look it up, it's called Gundramon. I do remember Digimon being more kid-friendly, but it's interesting to see Digimon take a more Shin Megami Tensei style approach to JRPG gameplay. But I also haven't played any of these either, so I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. But I do want to give it a shot one day. The last Digimon Story game, Digimon Cyber Sleuth, I think ran pretty well on Steam Deck, so there's no reason to believe that this wouldn't run well on Steam Deck as well. But who knows. Digimon Story: Time Stranger releases on October the 2nd. Geno Kids is a tag team based hack and slash, taking cues from games like Devil May Cry and even games like Kingdom Hearts 2. Of course, I've tried out the demo. The demo only had 2 characters to switch from, but you can make a lot of interesting combos by swapping characters and using different movesets. I tried out Geno Kids demo as part of a Next Fest on my Steam Deck, and I can tell you, the game ran pretty well on Steam Deck. I also did quite like the demo, though I didn't spend enough time to really explore the combat myself, but you know, with the full game I would imagine I'd have more time to do so. A demo running well may not always be indicative of how the rest of the game's gonna run Steam Deck, but I have no reason to believe that it wouldn't run well on Steam Deck. Geno Kids also releases on October the 2nd. House of Necrosis is a PS1 inspired roguelike. Not the modern definition of a roguelike, but the traditional definition. Turn-based dungeon crawling. You know, I've never really thought about a survivor horror themed roguelike like this. I mean, it kind of makes sense in practice. And of course, the vibes generally feels like PS1 era Resident Evil. Resident Evil 1 specifically, I should say. As for performance, I mean, look at the game. This game looks like it was made for a PlayStation 1, so I would assume this would run pretty well on Steam Deck. House of Necrosis releases on October the 6th. Little Nightmares 3. To be honest, I'm not super familiar with Little Nightmares 1 or 2, or 3 for that matter. But from what I understand, they are puzzle horror games, so to speak. A little more cutesy than your average Resident Evil or Silent Hill game, but still horror themed nonetheless. Little Nightmares 1 and 2 apparently ran pretty well on Steam Deck, so I would imagine that this one would run also pretty decently as well. I mean, to be fair, it might not, but you could always just lower the resolution. And to be honest, it's not like a really combat intensive game, so there's a good chance that it might run well and play pretty okay at 30 FPS. I don't know though. Little Nightmares 3 releases on October the 9th. Blue Protocol Star Resonance. You know, there's a bit of a history with this game. Blue Protocol was a legit PC console MMO that released in Japan. It was about to release here last year, but it got cancelled because the game wasn't doing too well. And of course, it was subsequently shut down in Japan. That said, it's being brought back to life by a different developer. I'm not sure what happened, but hey, it's whatever, I guess. As a self-professed MMO junkie, I kinda did want to try out the original MMO, but hey, I'll try out this version as well. It seems to be transitioning from the original sort of grindy MMO aspects to more mobile-friendly, kind of less grindy, but also potentially more pay-to-win gacha aspects. I don't know, I never played the original. I never got to play the original. As for Steam Deck, I would imagine this game running pretty well on Steam Deck. The big question though is whether or not they'll let this game run on Steam Deck or not. You know, anti-cheat and all. Blue Protocol Star Resonance releases on October the 9th. Absolem is a kind of insane 2D roguelike beat 'em up. In a world where most roguelikes are just kind of like Hades but like slightly worse, honestly, I kinda dig this game. I played the demo during the Next Fest and man, it was pretty awesome. It's being developed by some of the guys behind Streets of Rage 4, and if you've played that game, you know how good of a beat 'em up that is, so I'm very excited to see how the rest of the game turns out. We need more roguelike beat 'em ups with deeper fighting mechanics, and honestly, this looks like this could itch. Now, obviously, I didn't get super far because it was a demo, but I want to see how an endgame character looks compared to like a beginner game character. You know? I want to see how a character grows from beginning to the end of a run where you get powerful items that drastically change how the game is played. Yes, I've tried the demo on Steam Deck, and yes, it runs pretty well on Steam Deck. Absolem releases October the 9th. Battlefield 6 is an easy game to evaluate because it's probably not going to run well on Steam Deck, and even if it does run on Steam Deck, it's probably not going to be playable on Steam Deck because of the anti-cheat that EA is so proud of. There's also no telling how post-game support for this game will turn out given that EA recently just sold itself to some pretty, let's just say, interesting investors. There's no telling what'll happen once the deal finalizes and goes through and whatnot, but it's safe to say that privatizing EA may not be the silver bullet we need to save this company from mediocrity. So yeah, don't expect to run this on Steam Deck or even a high-powered Linux desktop because of the anti-cheat, so yeah. Battlefield 6. It'll release on October the 10th. Yeast vs Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga. Rather than being a JRPG like the two games that are being crossed over here, instead it's more of like an arena fighter almost. Think Power Stone style. You guys ever play Power Stone before? I can certainly imagine this being a fun little party game for you and 3 other friends, but it looks like there's some meat to the actual combat itself in case you ever want to do one-on-ones. In fact, it seems like this whole trailer is just one-on-one fights, which honestly, I kind of dig because it looks like it's a whole lot of fun. I want to give this game a shot. And it looks like it runs pretty well on the Steam Deck. I mean, it's not super graphically demanding naturally. Yeast vs Trails in the Sky Alternative Saga releases on October the 10th. Ball X Pit, or is the X in Ball Pit also silent? You never know these days, but what I do know is that I did try out the demo for Steam Deck and it's a lot of fun. Think of like a modern roguelike brick game. Like, what's the brick game technically called? It's surely not called Brick Game, right? I don't know, it's good. It's gone by a lot of other different names. You know the game I'm talking about. And Ball Pit is that game on steroids, naturally. The demo ran pretty well on Steam Deck, so I would imagine the full game would also run pretty well on Steam Deck. That said, I could see this getting pretty laggy when there's a bunch of enemies, a bunch of enemy bullets, and a bunch of different balls that you're bouncing around, and a bunch of different effects, so yeah. But I mean, Vampire Survivors also gets pretty laggy towards the end game, and people used to play that all the time on the Steam Deck. Ball Pit releases on October the 15th. Ninja Gaiden 4, definitely one of my most hyped releases. The big question is, will this run well on Steam Deck? Well, I want to say yes, and I want to be kind of optimistic. But at the same time though, I mean, Koei Tecmo games sort of don't have a great reputation for running well on Steam Deck, oddly enough. But I mean, this is also co-developed with Platinum Games, so I'm going to be a little more optimistic and say yes, but I could be wrong. Plus, this isn't like an open world game, so I could see this running a lot more smoothly on the Steam Deck than one might think. I've talked at length about Ninja Gaiden 4, so yeah, no more needs to be said. It needs to come out now. But instead, it's coming out on October the 20th. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. You know, I'm not too familiar with Vampire the Masquerades, but I mean, I see some gameplay and I kind of like what I'm seeing. A deep underground society of modern day vampires. It's pretty sick, you know, it's always a good time. I'm not really sure what sort of game this is supposed to be though. Is it sort of a linear game or is it supposed to be, well, open world? I don't know, I'd have to look more into it, but it does look vaguely interesting. And having read the minimum requirements, it seems pretty likely that this may run pretty decently on the Steam Deck. They even mentioned the Steam Deck by name in the FAQ. And of course they say it's compatible with the Steam Deck, so I would imagine if the game didn't run well on Steam Deck that they would say, oh, I mean, it technically runs, but like it doesn't really run that well. I'm sure they would have said that about the Steam Deck. But it makes me think that maybe this will be playable on the Steam Deck at low settings. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 releases on October the 21st. To be honest, I haven't played the original Outer Worlds, but this one looks pretty interesting. I wonder if it's one of those games where I have to play the original to play it, because honestly, the original didn't look super interesting to me, but this one looks a little better. At least, the gameplay looks a little better. Maybe I'm just tripping though. Unfortunately, I do think that this game may be kind of out of reach for the Steam Deck, looking at the minimum requirements. I mean, it doesn't require ray tracing or anything like that, but like, I'm not entirely sure this will run that well on Steam Deck. You could get a solid 30 FPS if you lower the graphical details, but I don't even know that for certain. The Outer Worlds 2 releases on October the 29th. Arc Raiders is slated to be one of the big live service launches this year, being an extraction shooter, of course. You know, Steam doesn't have too many extraction shooters, but I mean, it seems like a fun concept, and hopefully this will be a lot of fun too. So essentially, Arc Raiders is that, an extraction shooter, and I mean, it's going to be a live service game. The big question is whether or not this will run on Steam Deck. The beta actually ran on Steam Deck from reports I've read. Ran on Steam Deck, played at a solid 40 to 50 FPS, I think. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the final game will be that way, but I do have hope that if the anti-cheat does work, then it'll probably run pretty decently. Arc Raiders releases on October the 30th. Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection features almost every Mortal Kombat game from the very first one, all the way up to like Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on the Game Boy Advance, which is an interesting choice. But of course, in addition to getting all of these classic Mortal Kombat fighting games, we're also getting, of course, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero and Mortal Kombat Special Forces. Now, I've never played Special Forces before, so that's going to be completely new to me. I've tried out Mythology Sub-Zero and it's pretty rough, but I'm willing to give it a second chance. I can imagine some Mortal Kombat fans wanting a Volume 2 featuring all of the PS2 games, and maybe even Mortal Kombat 9, but most importantly, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, which I think people actually really liked. That's another one I haven't played actually. And naturally, these are all emulated versions of the old Mortal Kombat games, so I would imagine they run really well on the Steam Deck. A perfect fit, if you will. And Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection releases on October the 30th. Last but certainly not least is Mina the Hollower, a love letter to the old Game Boy Color era of games. You know, top-down sort of games like Zelda almost. Well, think Zelda with Castlevania aesthetics. It's being developed by Yacht Club Games, and I know Yacht Club has published a bunch of other games, but realistically they've only ever made Shovel Knight games. Whether it's Shovel Knight, the DLCs, or perhaps even like some spin-offs, but this is like their first original game in quite a bit of time. So yeah. And just in time for Halloween 2, this game releases on Halloween Day, October the 31st. Honestly, this month didn't have very many super scary games. I mean, maybe they should have waited to release Silent Hill F this month, but that's just me, I guess. But of course, there are a lot of pretty gory games for those of you that like to slash things up. And there are plenty of pretty nice horror aesthetics or Halloween aesthetics games releasing this month. Some of which I didn't cover because time, but at the same time though, there's plenty of games. You'll find some games on your own, and hopefully they'll run on your Steam Deck. I'm sure most of these will run on your Steam Deck except for like, oh, I don't know, Battlefield 6. But I'm sure my audience will easily get over not playing Battlefield 6 on the Steam Deck. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.